Imagine a game of chess. You take pieces, trying to find a way to corner the enemy king, but with each move the enemy set of pieces gets reinforced. You take a particularly important figure, improving your position, but the enemy introduces a new strategy, gets 5 new pieces to replace the one you took. Your situation seems more and more hopeless and you realize a frontal confrontation is something you want to avoid. Now imagine playing a game of galactic chess against the AI where you start with a single pawn, but the enemy starts controlling the whole board and having more than a full set of pieces. AI War 2 is a game about overcoming odds that are stacked against you, with the only hope of success resting in your own unimportance, in the minuscule nature of your own forces compared to the legions the AI controls. The galaxy is enslaved. Humanity is nothing but a small remnant, and every minute and move is a game where the ultimate survival of the human race is at stake. But you have one big advantage, and that is the fact that the AI is busy, that its main force is off conquering and enslaving other races. The AI is cold and rational. There is no need to devote an overwhelming force on an unimportant, weak and small target, and you want it to look that way for as long as possible. Your only hope and best strategy is a guerrilla war, an image of weakness behind which you can build your strength, until it's time to strike at the heart of the AI. An open war is never advisable and rarely viable. The game is played on a galactic map of your choice. It consists of interconnected planets which are under AI control. Your goal is to eliminate the AI's main command HQ, but on the way there you have to liberate additional planets to gain the many things you will need to achieve this goal. The game is based around a few resources: metal, which is rather self-explanatory and which is generated through special mining stations attached to planets; energy, which is mainly generated by command centers that you claim planets with; and science, which is a finite resource gained through planet liberation and is used for a few things. The most important probably tech upgrades. There are also hacking points, another finite resource gained through planet liberation and used for many useful hacking actions that can help you in your struggle against the AI. AI War 2 made a commendable step and introduced a few features that are really not making the game any simpler than its predecessors, but probably easier to handle. 2 has shifted the focus more to a macro kind of game, removing many of the features that were more micro-intensive in AI War 1. While the image of overwhelming complexity, which was especially apparent for AI War 1, is usually only that, an image, it still seemed off-putting to people who were trying to get into the game. And to be honest, a certain degree of patience and commitment to learning some of the systems through trial and error was needed for the game to really get going. The biggest shift in AI War 2 is the simplification of resource gathering and shipbuilding. Fleets now have flagships that will automatically rebuild and spawn ships if factories are in range. A flat amount of science is gathered over time when you take over an AI planet without needing to build labs. Command stations can now be built without actually getting a colony ship to the system. Hacking is now mostly tied to a flagship that is doing the actual work. Things like these were reworked and reforged in a proper way, not dumbing down or simplifying any of the actual features, but removing some of the layers and hoops that players had to jump through to play the game. Better said, some of the routine was reworked to need less work and attention from the player. AI progress is probably the most important mechanic in the game. AI progress is a value that is raised or lowered by your actual actions against the AI. It's a very simple but effective system. You raise the AI progress by aggressive actions against the AI, like destroying one of its command stations to liberate a planet. Every such action increases the AI progress score, which measures the AI response to your actions. The higher the score, the more attention the AI devotes to your destruction. Therefore, the optimal way is to raise your AI progress as little as possible and to use the opportunities, hacking, and destroying special AI installations to keep your AI progress as low as possible. The AI progress is your overall indication of success as well. If it is raised too high, the game can end very abruptly, or you can get stuck by the reaction of the AI. A high score indicates that you are a high priority threat to the existence of the AI, and therefore you will get a suitable reaction. High AI score basically mean that the AI will dedicate more forces to your destruction or pull forces from other theaters of war with extragalactic war forces, which are seen as the real war machines the AI uses when it's serious about destroying somebody. Everything you do is in some way tied to the AI progress. For example, the way to gather additional ships is by capturing flagships that are stranded in AI systems. But to do that, you have to destroy the local command station. That basically means that every expansion of your forces is paid by additional AI progress. There are certain ways to lower the AI progress score, mostly by hacking or destroying certain structures in the galaxy, and that is one of the vital ways of tricking the AI into perceiving you as less of a threat than you actually are. One of the things the AI War franchise is known for is the difficulty. The difficulty ranges from difficulty 1 to 10, where 7 is seen as the place where the game really begins and where the AI is challenging. Everything below is intended as a way to test things and learn the game, while difficulties hard and 7 are seen as the real challenging ones. An interesting system is that difficulty 10 is intended to be unbeatable by the devs, and every time someone actually manages to beat a level 10 AI, it is seen as a bug. The dev appreciates reports of such victories and usually addresses the way the level 10 AI was beaten. As you see, there are times in AI War when you are just not meant to win. The difficulty and gameplay experience is very adjustable as well, which is one of the main things that keeps AI War 2 interesting. You can select the difficulty, the AI type, which is a predefined set of options that determines the character of the AI, the difficulty and behavior of certain subforces the AI uses, the Hunter and Warden fleets, as well as the Praetorian Guard. Every type of AI offers a unique challenge, and certain ones are seen as an additional increase in difficulty rather than just a way to diversify the gameplay experience. Another layer of customization can be found in the starting fleet and stations that you choose. There are quite a few combinations, but I'll just talk about my favorite one, the Parasitic Fleet. It basically provides a fleet of ships that turn enemy ships into friendly zombies once they kill one of them. This way your real strength in any combat situation is amplified by the zombies, and they usually roam around the map for a while so you can count on them to support your forces. There are far too many ships in AI War 2 for me to pretend that I'm familiar with all of them, and for the sake of this review, it is just important to point out that ship combinations and the way of upgrading them by spending science lead to many possible combinations and different gameplay styles, which are suited to countering some specific plays by different types of AI, as well as differentiating your own style of gameplay. The defensive gameplay is mostly centered around turrets and mines. Planets have specific turret caps that can be further upgraded by capturing certain structures, using battle stations and other methods. Strategic placement and foresight are very important, but even the most sophisticated defensive system has little chance of stemming the AI tide if the AI progress is too high in your specific game. It is rather satisfying to see waves upon waves of AI crash on your defensive lines, and when there is enough of a defense to stop your enemies. This gameplay loop gives a bit of a tower defense impression, but not in any cheap or simplistic way, but as an important element in the general gameplay flow that AI War 2 presents. Other structures can be found on the map, and some of these can be used to call in other factions into the galaxy. Sometimes it can be forces friendly to you, human resistance fighters which will come in two systems to aid you, marauders that will raid the AI, but you as well, metal-eating aliens that are very keen on meeting the massive fleet of the AI, nanobots, golems, ancient alien races featured in the Spire DLC. All of these things provide you with a different way to deal with the challenges posed by the AI. Maybe you're stuck, the AI progress is too high. Maybe the only viable way is to release the nanocaust into the galaxy, hoping that you will be able to bolster your defenses enough to hold them off while they deal with the AI. Or maybe your stealthy fleet managed to complete a hack on the nanocaust HQ, making them a friendly force in the galaxy. Maybe you can actually wage an open war against the AI by collecting powerful artifacts of the Spire race, creating a fleet of powerful ships that can blast their way to the AI HQ. All of these factions can be set up on the start of the game as well. So whatever it may be, the point is that the approach to destroying the AI is never boringly linear or simply the same. One thing that I appreciate in any game is modding, and there seems to be a thriving modding scene for AI War 2. I haven't really gotten around to try many mods, but the mod I can recommend is the excellent Civilian Industry mod, which adds another faction that can be released on the galaxy of your choice. Basically a whole civilian sector which will help you with the AI by building its own fleet and trading network. This mod ships with the game, along with some others, and can be enabled in the options. As for AI War 2, what is the verdict? I have to say that I was surprised by the fact of how addicting the gameplay loop is. It looks rather simplistic, sometimes more chess-like, but it keeps you interested, and before you know it you find yourself playing 10-hour matches against the higher AI difficulties, trying to find a way to pull the plug out of that AI that's been taunting you for a while. I would highly recommend the game, and it is well worth the money asked for, and it certainly will reward you with a lot of fun if you actually stick with it and learn the basics. For the end, a few notes from yours truly. Number 1. The Zenith Onslaught DLC is coming out in around 7 weeks. Should be fun. 2. Enable the Allow Funny Voice Clip setting. Believe me. 3. I obviously don't have any personal interest in gain if you buy the game or not, but I'm aware that anything can be had on the high seas these days. But I just want to point out that I know a passion project when I see one, and maybe you should stick to the traditional way of getting games if you want to see games like this in the future. The developer deserves the support. So that was it. Until next time, have a good one, and stay salty.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.